A lot of people have asked me whether I've seen this interview with Peter Fury, and if so, what did I think of it? Well, I have seen it, and this is what I think. Like myself, Peter Fury always thought that Usyk would be a problem for the big boys at heavyweight, and he was impressed by how Usyk looked against Derek Chisora. It wasn't the prettiest fight. It wasn't the fight where Usyk was able to box at his absolute slickest, but nonetheless, I thought he won comfortably, and so did Peter Fury. However, in this interview, Peter Fury talks about what Mick Hennessy said to him recently, which was that he thinks Usyk deliberately performed poorly against Chisora in order to lull Anthony Joshua into a false sense of security. And Peter Fury agrees with him, because he said that there was one of the rounds where Usyk hurt Chisora and backed him up to the ropes, but didn't go in for the finish. Now, while this is possible, and some fighters actually do this, I tend to suspect in this particular instance that is not the case with Alexander Usyk against Chisora. When fighters deliberately underperform, and it's rare, but it does happen, but it's usually when they're trying to secure a world title shot. But in this case, Usyk was guaranteed a shot. He didn't have to try and perform badly so that the champion would look at him and say, okay, let me fight him. He didn't look good in his last fight. No, his shot was guaranteed. And if you deliberately perform badly against a guy like Derek Chisora, who is 250 pounds and he's trying to take your head off with every punch, that's dangerous. You can get hurt if you deliberately perform badly against someone like that. And you're fighting in the guy's hometown. What if you end up misjudging it and losing the fight on points? So that it was just Chisora's style that was giving him problems. And as far as him not going in for the finish when he had Chisora hurt, I think that's just more about preserving his hands, not picking up an injury against Chisora when you're right on the doorstep of a world title shot. Because at the end of the day, Chisora is a very big, strong man. He'll come back swinging. He's got a very big, hard head. So you don't want to injure yourself. And Usyk has had injuries. He's had elbow problems, hand issues. What's the point in damaging yourself against Chisora, like I say, when you're right on the brink of a world title shot? So I tend to suspect that's why he didn't go for the finish at that point. The rest of the stuff that Peter Fury says in the video, I certainly agree with, though, particularly what he said about Anthony Joshua's weight, because I've seen quite a few people following AJ's loss to Usyk saying AJ needs to put the weight back on. They're saying he needs to be aggressive in the rematch and he needs to be heavier. I think that is absolutely the wrong thing to do. Peter Fury said that if AJ was heavier, as he used to be, he would have actually got stopped against Usyk. I agree with that. He said that AJ's weight right now is the weight that he should be fighting at for all his subsequent fights. I 100% concur with that. What went wrong for AJ had nothing to do with his weight. It doesn't matter what you weigh if you're not applying yourself in the correct way, doing the right things, using the right technique, employing the right strategy, then weight is irrelevant. Weight only becomes a factor if you're able to use the weight, lean on the guy, push the guy back. He didn't even attempt to do that for the most part. He was trying to box with him. And when he's heavier, he doesn't have the same stamina as he does when he's lighter. Against somebody like Usyk, you need the stamina. And he would have been slower. He wouldn't have been as quick. He wouldn't have been able to, as much as Usyk outmaneuvered him, he would have been even more outmaneuvered if he was heavier. People in their minds think of AJ's most explosive performances, like, let's say, the Vladimir Klitschko fight when he eventually knocked Klitschko out, or, I don't know, Dylan White, or, you name the Anthony Joshua performance. And because he was heavier in those fights and won, they think, okay, well, that's what he needs to do in the Usyk rematch, be as heavy as he was for those fights. No, he's never fought anybody like Usyk before, not even remotely close. So you're thinking the common denominator in all AJ's best wins must be a higher weight. Therefore, that's something he needs to get back to. Again, he's never fought anybody like Usyk before. That's the common denominator. It's not his weight, it's the fact that the guys he'd fought previously don't have Usyk's skill set. He weighed the same in that first Usyk fight as he weighed against Kubrat Pulev. And wasn't the Kubrat Pulev fight an explosive knockout? The lack of weight didn't stop him hitting hard and landing devastating punches in that one, did it? So going into the rematch, if he actually goes ahead with it, then we'll see, he needs to go hell for leather. I agree with that. And it's a big gamble because he could get himself knocked out in the process. But he needs to just apply himself, and 240 pounds is more than heavy enough. He's 20 pounds heavier than Usyk. It's more than heavy enough. He is not draining himself to be 240 pounds. This is not like a welterweight. He walks around at a very similar weight to what he's fighting at. So that is his natural weight. He doesn't need to be pumping himself up and putting on extra bulk. It's not going to help him. What would help him is getting rid of Rob McCracken and getting somebody who understands professional heavyweight boxing to a higher level than Rob McCracken does. Anthony Joshua, to some degree, still has an amateur mentality. And what I mean by that is because he's up there training with Team GB all the time and training with Rob McCracken, who had him while he was on Team GB, who trained him then, he's gotten into the mindset of point scoring, where everything needs to be clean. And again, this is what amateurs do. It's not physical enough. If you want to learn about professional boxing, the physicality of it, you don't need to be around amateurs. You need to be around hardened pros. And obviously he does spar some hardened pros, but I'm just talking about the general environment that he's in when he's training. When Vasyl Lomachenko turned professional, in his second fight, he fought Orlando Salido for a world title and he got beat. And that was his welcome. That was his baptism of fire. That was his introduction to the world of professional boxing. That was where he found out that this is very different to the amateurs because it's a lot more rough and tumble. It's a lot more physical. It's not all clean point scoring. And moving forward, Lomachenko took that experience, learned from it, and made the necessary adjustments. This is why, like I said in a previous video, I think Anthony Joshua would actually do well to go and train in America for a while, in their gyms out there, and get physical. Not all this point scoring stuff. And when I say point scoring, obviously AJ is trying to knock people out, but he's trying to do it in a clean way where there's minimal bodily contact, where he's not really getting stuck in. And we know that he's done it in the past. He has the ability, but it's the mentality that he's missing at the moment. It's all a bit friendly over there at Team GB. That's how it seems to me. I think he needs a bit of hostility in the environment he trains in, because the professional boxing ring is a hostile place. You know, especially at his level. And while I'm on the subject, shout out to Jay. I think it was Jay in one of my Discord servers, Hatman and the Gang, who said that Tommy Brooks could be a good trainer for Anthony Joshua. Very, very good shout. I forgot about Tommy Brooks. Yes, he has a good temperament for AJ, I think. Very calm guy. Got all the experience with heavyweights and what have you. American trainer, veteran, knows what he's doing, knows his stuff. That's definitely someone AJ should at least trial with. So shout out to Jay if it was Jay. There was a part of the interview where Umar asked Peter Fury what AJ needs to change, because Peter Fury said there are some basic things he needs to do better in the rematch or win the rematch. And Peter Fury refused to tell him. He said he's sick of giving out all this free advice. And that was an interesting response. Maybe it's because if he did tell AJ what to do and give him the secret to beating Usyk in the rematch, that might drive an even greater wedge between himself and his brother and his nephew Tyson Fury. You know, maybe he doesn't want to come across as being too much of an AJ fan. Or perhaps he didn't really have the secret answer that AJ needs, and therefore he just avoided answering the question because he hadn't really thought about it that deeply. Whatever the case may be, it was pretty funny. And one of the things I've always liked about Peter Fury is that he's pretty much the only person within the Fury clan who has the ability to be objective. When he's talking about AJ or Usyk or Wilder or any of these guys, even when he was still training Tyson Fury, he was very objective about it. He wasn't about slagging this one off or slagging that one off. He was all about giving credit where it's due. And the criticism was always constructive. Despite all the trash talking between different camps and what have you, he would focus on what they do in the ring. And even if he don't like a guy, he would say, well, he's good at this, he's good at that, and he's a dangerous man, and so on. I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks that Peter Fury might actually be a good trainer for Anthony Joshua, but that would surely be a step too far. There's no way that Peter Fury could ever reconcile with the other side of his family if he went ahead and became AJ's trainer. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the Peter Fury interview and everything I've talked about in this video. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.